We have to talk about the Brooklyn Nets. This is a team with one of the craziest futures in the NBA right now, and we have to discuss where exactly all of this is going. Really quickly though, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Prize Picks, where right now you can get a 100% deposit match up to $100 when you use code SPORTING, and that link is in the description as well. Now, if you've never done Prize Picks before, basically you go onto the site and you pick between 2 and 6 selections, and you pick more or less for each of them. And if you get them correct, you can win up to 25 times your money. Not to mention these demons and goblins payouts as well, up to 100x. There are some selections like this green one right here that are lower payouts, and there are these red ones right here that are harder to get but give you higher payouts. And you can mix and match all of them to try and win some cash. So for example, I can take Donovan Mitchell more than 29.5 points, I can take Tobias Harris less than 18.5 points, and then DeJounte Murray more than 21.5 points, and just those three would be 6.5x. And there's also a new game mode as well called Prize Picks Pick'em Arena. There you make 2, 3, or 4 selections, you pick more or less for each, and you submit your entry. Then you're going to be placed in a group with other members based on your number of picks and the entry amount, and you finish with the highest score in your group to win a cash prize. Or if you get all your picks right, you get 4 for 4 is 10x, 3 for 3 is 5x, and 2 for 2 is 3x. So there's all kinds of stuff going on all the time on Prize Picks, including that 100% deposit match up to $100 when you use code SPORTING or you click the link in the description. Make sure to check out Prize Picks, and thanks again to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's video. So of course, what initiated this video is the Brooklyn Nets have fired head coach Jacque Vaughn. That's happened days ago. That's not really the point of this video. It's more so to think about what all of this is potentially leading to, what exactly the plan is supposed to be in Brooklyn. It is important to point out, however, that once the Nets hire a full-time coach in the offseason, it will be their 4th acting head coach since 2022. Steve Nash, Jacque Vaughn, Kevin Ollie, and then now whoever the new guy is. I'm assuming it's not going to be Kevin Ollie. They're going to hire a new guy outside the organization, a full head coaching search. Their 4th coach since 2022. That is not a sign of a successful organization. That's not a sign of a stable organization. And certainly, I think firing Jacque Vaughn was the right decision, but you could certainly question bringing him in and making him the full-time head coach in the first place. And this has just turned into a really, really bad situation in Brooklyn. I mean, there were players outwardly calling out the coach, calling out the offense, saying that it didn't really make any sense. Clearly, the players had kind of turned on Jacque Vaughn, and that is just never a situation that is easy to remedy without obviously firing the coach. You don't know what the future of the GM is either. He has been, Sean Marks has been over the team for almost a decade at this point. He has hired multiple coaches at this point, and it is something that anytime that you fire the coach and you're potentially looking at a new GM, it represents a franchise that has completely lost any sense of direction, which is about the worst place you can possibly be. Now, granted, it's not like this is a team that doesn't know what success looks like from a GM and a coaching perspective. They were the title favorites in 2021, and without some crazy circumstances, whether it be injuries or the suspension of the league, they could have potentially won at least 1 or 2 titles in that circumstance, or at least made the finals. And of course, they were a desirable enough situation in 2019 to sign both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So certainly there is a history of success here, but everything that has happened since 2022 has pretty much been a complete disaster, and it needs to get fixed, which then makes you look towards the future. So as of right now, Kevin Ollie is going to be the interim head coach. He's someone that is well respected in the locker room. As soon as they announced that Jacque Vaughn was going to be fired, I assumed that Kevin Ollie was going to be the head coach. I also assumed that for a team that kind of made an out of nowhere hire of Steve Nash before, that had Kenny Atkinson before, that had Jacque Vaughn as an interim coach once, and then they brought in Jacque Vaughn as an interim coach again, and then they extended him, and then they fired him, and now they're going to have Kevin Ollie as the interim coach. I would expect that a team with that head coaching history is going to have a full head coaching search this offseason, rather than, regardless of any amount of success that they have with Kevin Ollie through the rest of the year, I would imagine they're going to be looking for a new full-time head coach. And that is important because there is actually some talent on this team. As a Nets fan, I know what it looks like when you are in a disaster of a rebuild situation, and there are some parallels of this to that situation back in the mid-2010s when the Nets traded all their first-round picks for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. They had no first-round picks. They had no talent on the roster. This isn't that. Mikal Bridges is good. He's on a good contract. Cam Thomas is interesting. Cam Johnson, in theory, is an asset. Ben Simmons is a massive expiring contract. Nick Claxton, who's a free agent this offseason, is a good player. There are good players on this roster, and they have future picks from all of these other teams, from Phoenix, from Philadelphia. And even though they don't have their own first-round pick this year, there were some people going around saying, oh, the Nets should just tank now. They don't have their own first-round pick this year, so that's not really an option. Even though that is the case, there is still a foundation for a future here in Brooklyn that could at least get relatively relatively interesting. But I don't think that that is the plan for the rebuild here, whether it's Sean Marks implementing the rebuild or not. Here's what I think the plan is in Brooklyn. They have these future first round picks. They have complementary guys like Claxton if they re-sign him, Mikal Bridges, who a lot of stars want to play alongside. And they have a plan of bringing in stars once again, the same way that they did with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Now, the way that things have kind of shifted in terms of player movement over the last couple of seasons since 2019, it's more likely that that would happen via a trade. Players don't typically go all the way until free agency, or at least star players don't anymore. And it seems like the Nets are counting on trying to do that again, being a desirable market potentially in Brooklyn. I don't know how true that is, but that's something that they're counting on that they're going to try and do. And they are seeing this as a let's build around Mikal Bridges, not build as Mikal Bridges as the centerpiece, but we're going to build with Mikal Bridges, bring in a star. And I think the star right now, that the assumption is that they think they're going to get eventually, is Donovan Mitchell. Again, I'm not saying that any of this is true, that it's a good decision, that it's something that they should be counting on, but clearly, even though they have these future picks and they have an opportunity to potentially rebuild through the draft, the fact that they have kept someone like Mikal Bridges around and have completely refused to even entertain any kind of trade offers for him tells me that they are the Donovan Mitchell team, or potentially another star down the road. And they believe that with their future draft assets as well as potential cap space, they can put a contending team back in Brooklyn again, even with as disastrous of a situation as this looks like right now. And the way that you do that is you make your situation look desirable with Mikal Bridges, some complementary pieces, you bring back Nick Claxton, you have future assets that you got in the Kevin Durant trade, and importantly, to kind of tie the whole thing together, you have the opportunity to bring in a head coach that potentially could help you lure players like Donovan Mitchell and others. There are connections to Donovan Mitchell throughout the league in terms of coaches that are no longer employed that you could bring in as veteran guys, and not just to Donovan Mitchell, but other stars around the league as well. And I think that we're going to get a very, very big clue on exactly how Brooklyn is going to attempt to fix all of this in the post-KD Kyrie era with who exactly they hire in the offseason as their head coach. Again, I would assume unless they have some crazy record with Kevin Ollie, they're going to go into the offseason and look for a new head coach, and who they bring in and what players they're potentially connected to and how that impacts their potential recruitment of players via free agency or potentially a trade request. That's going to tell us everything we need to know. And so right now, as a Nets fan, it's not a very good time to be a Nets fan. They are legitimately, going into the All-Star break, they were one of the worst teams in the league over the prior 20 games. They were terrible. Not a good watch. The offense sucks, but at least it appears as though they have somewhat of a plan. I don't know if they're going to get an opportunity to actually execute that plan properly. To me, it seems unlikely that someone like Donovan Mitchell would try and show up and go to the Nets when the Knicks are really good, when there's other bigger market opportunities out there where those situations are much better set up from a basketball perspective, namely Miami. I don't know why the Nets would be the choice, apart from maybe they're right. Maybe players really want to play with Mikal Bridges. You bring in a new head coach and it becomes a desirable situation in Brooklyn. But the bottom line is, I'm not surprised they fired Jacque Vaughn, but I do think that it is the first step towards us really fully understanding what exactly the plan is going to be moving forward in Brooklyn.